All right, welcome everyone, both remotely, virtual, and in person. I'm super excited to host the second Flyerside chat here at the AppsFlyer office in San Francisco. Thanks especially for the people who joined us in person for making the trip. I hope that you'll be able to join us for lunch later on today as well. But before that, we want to talk about AI again. I know there's a lot of talk about AI and about how it's transforming everything that we're doing. Of course, like we see that a lot here at AppsFlyer in our day-to-day and how we use it as a tool that empowers our marketing team. In this conversation, we want to focus mostly on what it means for growth and UA marketers of mobile apps. So there are three different components that we want to talk about. First, we talk about how AI is actually, what it means for your product, what it means for the product that you're bringing to market. How do you position that as features? What are the expectations of users? The second part is about how you grow this user base and how you uncover new audiences using AI for sentiment analysis and other nifty ways of targeting. And then the third part is about how do you optimize your messaging? How do you think about like creative in a world where really the production cost has plummeted? And what are some of the tactics that you need to think about on that side? We have three fantastic speakers here who are going to take it away and dive into each of these three topics. There's Paige Laudenbeck, a senior account director at strategic accounts at Sensor Tower. Paige has a very strong background in advertising technology, software, and the travel sector. Then we have Ryan Angarami, the head of Reddit's app dev sales teams. He has 20 years of experience in advertising. He's passionate about attribution, which I love, branding, building, and user journeys, all very good stuff. And then our very own Eran Dunsky, the head of product for North America at AppsFlyer. He leads our strategy across cross-platform attribution, omnichannel growth, and more. And myself, I'm Jasper. I lead the marketing at AppsFlyer in North America. So with that, why don't we start talking a little bit about the impact of AI on the product itself, what it means for the app. Paige, take it away.
Hey everyone. So as Jasper mentioned, I work at Sensor Tower. So we collect data on the mobile app ecosystem as well as the marketing ecosystem. So a lot of the insights I'm going to be presenting today are regarding basically mobile app usage and how AI has influenced it, and basically the change of mobile app usage in regards to AI over the last couple of years. So state of AI here. So basically the first slide is kind of indicating the influence that the launch of ChatGPT had on the way basically app publishers market and brand their apps. So in 2015 to 2019, pretty much the only types of apps that used AI or talked about AI in their title or their app description were games. But we saw that once ChatGPT was released, that changed drastically. So you can see here that after that release on the right-hand side of the graph, those categories that are including AI in their description or title started to diversify. Not just games anymore, but software, health and wellness, jobs and education. Some other categories are really starting to incorporate AI. So what this is basically telling is that AI is no longer just for gaming apps or even software apps, but for any kind of app, we're seeing all categories starting to incorporate it. Next here, we have some information on kind of how AI has been used. So the left bubble is talking about the terms that are used in AI app descriptions, or in app descriptions following AI. So oftentimes you see things like AI powered or AI technology, AI assistant, things like that. But on the right-hand side, this is actually the functionality of the app. So when an app includes things like AI in its app descriptions, basically what is the functionality of that app? So you see here, assistant, chatbot, image, chat is, those phrases or use cases are quite common. But it's really starting to diversify outside of other things. You can even see girlfriend on here, for example, meaning people are making AI girlfriend apps, travel, language, magic. So calorie and scanner, there's really things that are going outside of just like the initial things that you would think of an AI app, like a chatbot or an assistant, and really starting to diversify into other topics. This slide is basically showing the way that ChatGPT prompts have changed from the beginning of 2024 to the beginning of 2025. So the top 10 prompts in terms of growth that are being searched in ChatGPT has changed drastically. And we see a big increase in health and wellness, government, shopping, fun, trivia, pop culture. These prompts are all increasing by about 1.5 to 2%. Whereas on the right-hand side, you can see that things like coding and language are actually decreasing in frequency. So the reason we're showing this slide is to indicate that essentially when people go into ChatGPT and ask something, the increase is really coming from topics that are not necessarily like software or business or professional related. If anything, those are going down, but we see a big increase in like more soft topics and things that maybe people wouldn't have originally thought are an AI functionality. So kind of continuing on the last slide, this is kind of showing how the share of prompts has drastically changed year over year. So for example, last year, about 73% of prompts in ChatGPT were related to work and education. This year, that significantly decreased, about 15% less. And you can see that market share is going now to lifestyle and entertainment. So what we can basically take from this is that people are asking ChatGPT now more things that regard to like lifestyle and entertainment and health and shopping and things like that, and are relying on it less for work and education. Obviously, it's still the biggest part of ChatGPT prompts, but we can see that decreasing, indicating that it'll probably continue to decrease year over year, and it'll start to be a bit more diversified across topics. So this is indicating where basically ChatGPT refers users once they type in a prompt. So these are a list of the top websites that users are sent to when they ask something to ChatGPT. So we can see Wikipedia is the first. Reddit here is number 2. Shout out to Reddit. Amazon and YouTube are 3 and 4. So basically this is saying that, if I go ask ChatGPT, how do I find out about the history of San Francisco, for example, it'll most likely send me to some Wikipedia blog, but it can also send me to a subreddit talking about, San Francisco and how great it is. This is definitely interesting to see Amazon as number 3. It just shows how ChatGPT is influencing, purchase power and kind of stimulating the, e-commerce economy here. So definitely something interesting to kind of point out about how Amazon's high ranking just displays, chatbots really starting to drive purchase intent and online purchasing. So this is used to show basically how apps that are AI assistants have really started leaning into this like cartoon style creative. We can see here this adorable little dachshund here in the middle. Really kind of showing that a lot of these AI assistant apps are really just promoting this like cartoon style image generation, especially with animals. This is just indicating that, basically people want this and they are finding it to be really valuable. We can see here on the left, this ad creative was seen on Reddit, right? And we can just see that ChatGPT is really representing themselves as an AI assistant that can help turn your dog into a Renaissance painting. In terms of how AI apps are basically using customization to reach their audience, this is showing that based on what a user searches in the App Store, they're going to be getting kind of different creatives in a different app page. So for example, if someone was to search AI image generator or free AI image generator, this is the iPhone visuals they're going to get from Chat On. So again, it's this like cartoon kind of style animal. What the slide is showing is that AI apps are able to kind of target how their app is displayed on the App Store based on what's searched and based on what the consumers want. So really interesting to see how AI apps, unsurprisingly, are kind of leading the way in like AI marketing on App Store, and how they're able to kind of adapt based on what the user is looking for. Next up, talking about dollars spent. So as I mentioned, Sensor Tower also has a product called Pathmatics. With this product, we're able to collect data on dollars spent in the digital ecosystem on digital channels. So that's how we're pulling in this data here. We can see that basically of the dollars spent that mention any AI or GBT or artificial intelligence, any of these terms, that dollars spent on those terms has increased drastically year over year. In 2023, for the first few months of the year, it was about $59 million that were spent on those terms, jumped up to 128, and now, so far, first half of 2025, we're seeing already $342 million spent on AI-related ads and impressions, whether it's in the caption or in the creative. So this is just showing, again, how advertisers in the US are really prioritizing AI as part of their branding, as part of how they're appealing to consumers, and really, yeah, incorporating this into their creative messaging. So continuing on talking about creatives and diversification, as mentioned in the previous slide, obviously software has been kind of the main focus of AI in the last couple years. But we can really see that starting to diversify. So other brands, not just software brands, are incorporating AI into their advertisements, but also into their creatives. So this lists basically the number of unique creatives and unique ad types that incorporate AI into basically into the text or into the caption. And as we can see, it's starting to really grow outside of just software. Education, jobs, shopping are taking up a huge category or a huge part of the category here. So just showing again that if these are some of the categories you sit in and you're not in the software category, that AI marketing is still relevant for your consumer base and your competitors are doing it. So last slide here from me, but basically wanted to point out kind of how Sensor Tower is going to try to get ahead of AI trends and how we're going to be continuing to track AI data and data related to AI as it continues to evolve. So we're looking at things like AI search. We're looking at hyper-targeted AI ads. And if ads start changing based on the type of consumer they're being sent to, how we're going to be able to track that. AI shopping agents, AI influencers, and then MCP. So we're really looking ahead at all of these kind of broader categories of AI. We believe it's our duty and our job to kind of track as AI develops and how that relates to consumer usage and things like that. So we're definitely staying ahead of the trends and starting to think about all these things as they continue to develop. Cool. That's it for me.
Thank you, Paige. Yeah, as always, like a lot of really, really good data from Sensor Tower and a lot of like in-depth insights. So that was a lot. Like out of your perspective or from your perspective, what do you think is what stands out the most about how consumers are using and expecting AI, and where should marketers pay close attention in reference to their product, their app that they're marketing?
Yeah, so as we can see, consumers are interacting with AI much differently than they used to be. It's no longer just games or software tech companies, but really all kinds of categories. So for marketers, I think it's important to know that your consumers are engaging with AI, even if your business isn't in a category like software, and that the opportunity to be part of the conversation of being referred from ChatGPT, for example, like Reddit is, and maybe partnering with companies like Reddit to be part of that conversation when someone does search something in ChatGPT. Like, how do you ensure that your brand is kind of part of that conversation and part of those referrals? I think that's super, super important because it's just, it's very clear that across all categories, people are starting to engage with AI. And if you're not part of the conversation, you may kind of get left behind in terms of, competitors are probably doing it. So that's what I'd recommend.
I think one thing to add to that from the advertiser's perspective is thinking about kind of the new era of SEO and basically AEO or answer engine optimization, and understanding the fact that LLMs read web pages differently than humans. there's a different way for you to expose the data behind your content so that LLMs can index it, understand it, and layer that back into the responses that they're providing to whoever's using the different interfaces. And also look at the incoming data. We see, for example, that ChatGPT is automatically appending a UTM source of ChatGPT. I mean, it's something that historically been in the hands of advertisers to add your own UTM tags. Somebody is now adding tags essentially on your behalf. But this is a way for them to increase the visibility of the traffic that they are driving into your specific website. So these are both data points that you should be taking into consideration, and also understanding how to expose your data in better ways for LLMs to understand your data better.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question I had was, so Sensor Tower has all these insights into digital advertising, into mobile advertising. Now you're adding the AI chatbot data to that. How do you see these AI data sets evolving, and what role will they play in shaping the marketer's understanding of AI's growing impact?
Yeah. So to answer that question, Sensor Tower has a first-party panel. So we have a number of apps that are out on the app stores that users can download. And when that happens, we have the ability to understand their behavior in other apps like ChatGPT, for example. So we're collecting tons of data on prompts, like what users are typing in a ChatGPT, where they're getting sent after, basically trying to understand, what do people care about, and where are they going? Why are they going to ChatGPT, essentially? So we have the ability to kind of expand that and streamline that out, essentially being able to show, okay, this is the main topics users care about. If you're a marketer, you should maybe try to position your product in a way that reaches the consumer, answers what the consumer is trying to ask with ChatGPT. So as you saw in that last slide, we're definitely aware of the way that ChatGPT and AI can be used for marketers and the way it's changing and evolving. And we're definitely going to be ensuring that we're collecting data on it to help inform marketers as it progresses.
Awesome. Thank you, Paige. I think that was a good table setter in terms of, again, the impact of AI on your product, how people find your product, what are their expectations. Now, the question is, how do you grow even more from that? And that's why we have Ryan from Reddit here.
Ooh, big shoes to fill. Thank you, Paige. Hi, I'm Ryan from Reddit. We already got a couple of plugs in there, so I'm already feeling pretty great about this day. If you were at the Mama SF event that AppsFlyer hosted a couple of months ago, some of this stuff might feel really familiar, a bit of a refresher of some of the things that we're seeing. Really complementary to a lot of the items that Paige talked about that Sensor Tower is seeing, right? This is no longer, I mean, it's probably been this case for at least a year and a half now, but it's no longer this like niche new technology that a lot of people aren't using, right? You see that change happening from really just like maybe software companies initially or gaming companies to now so many other verticals are using this, and this like explosion of AI creative being used, AI messaging being used. And with that, you becoming more general population usage, people have questions. Can I actually trust this or not? And so you see this all the time, right? Can you still trust Google search results? Are the blogs that I'm going to AI generated? Is the things that AI is learning from, is that valid results? And so some of the things that we're seeing happen on Reddit is we actually just had our 20-year anniversary, and in a lot of the ways, the platform was built for this. This is 20 years of conversation, right? Hundreds of thousands of different communities exist, whether it is r/San Francisco, or it's an investing community, or it's a parenting community, like everything under the sun you can imagine. And people are coming there to be able to decide, is there a water bottle that I should buy? What are tips for vacations that I should think about? Really leaning on those communities, not just because there's information there, but there's trust and there's validation. And so one of the things that we end up seeing, it was really interesting saying that like, Amazon is getting so many of those different referrals from ChatGPT, from other AI assistants. 51% of all conversations on the internet about a product are happening on Reddit. And you think about, there's a lot of websites out there. There's a lot of apps out there. And for over half of them to be happening all on one platform, a lot of that is because of this trust element and the authenticity and the ability to be able to validate, are these results true from another human being? And so while AI is obviously really important, it helps you summarize all of those things and able to move so much faster. What we're seeing on our site, on our app, is that there's 54% year-over-year growth on our site, and so much more conversation and engagement happening because people are really trying to get to the bottom of like, what is actually the truth out there? How can I validate it? How can I connect with other human beings to see, okay, what's like the real opinion here? How does that actually end up looking like in the conversations themselves? Knowing this is a app and attribution and marketing audience, we brought in a couple of different examples of what app is so useful that you can't believe it's free. I'm not going to read like the multi-paragraph response, but this is like a pretty typical response you see on the site, right? Somebody's coming here, maybe it's on Ask Reddit, maybe it's on a meditation community, and they want to see what is the community itself actually recommending. And there's so much extra nuance in there that somebody might have one perspective if they're at one life stage. They might have something else if they're like a hardcore investor. And the interesting thing about this is that there ends up being, from just one post, these 3,500 additional views that are all organic coming from there. And I think Iran brought up a really good point. It's creating this brand new role in the industry of no longer just search engine optimization, but really like AI optimization for the results themselves. Kind of like a further version of this is you see people, they come in and they get that answer, but so much of what Reddit makes that community important is people want to come back and see, okay, was that result that I got, was that opinion that I got, is that real, right? Yeah, the site is built off of this pretty democratic idea that good content rises at the top with an upvote. If it's bad content, it gets downvoted into oblivion and it's not necessarily valid, right? Or there's dissenting opinions and conversations that can happen there. And so you see people coming back to whether it's a Peloton community, it's meditation community, it's Apple Watch communities, and sharing their experiences because they already got maybe really good feedback from other members of that community, and they want to help kind of continue to contribute to that space. All of this comes back down to the trust side, right? So like 17% year over year in trust in Reddit, the number one platform for trust across the entire internet. On the same side, we're seeing it decreasing across other places. And we'll get to this in a couple of more slides. Just the types of conversations that are happening in certain apps and certain places, being able to see, is that real? Is that a real human being? Can I verify that? Is it an influencer? All these things start to really kind of erode trust on other places. Couple of examples that we have. Reddit Answers, you can go on your phone right now and use this. I actually use it quite a bit. Just booked an entire vacation a couple of weeks ago using a lot of the Reddit Answers community. And what Reddit Answers does is there's hundreds of thousands of communities. There's all this 20 years of conversation. That can sometimes be pretty daunting to be able to understand, okay, like what is like the real answer here? So what Reddit Answers does is type in a question, anything you have, and it's going to be able to summarize what the communities think about those things. And so something that you can do, I mean, I literally did it last night, is if you go to like a blog for a recipe website, everybody has been there. There's an endless amount of pop-ups. There's an endless amount of conversation that you didn't necessarily want when you're just trying to figure out, should I cook this thing for 18 minutes or 25? Go into Reddit Answers, hey, I need a recipe for blank, blank, blank. And you get like the community responses from there. And it's all just going to be straight, unfiltered. And people also responding back, hey, I tried this, it worked. Here's like another iteration of it. And you can take that to so many different things. What's a good app to download as I'm waiting for my layover at SFO, et cetera. We're starting to see marketers start to use this as well. So while they can obviously contact us at Reddit and be able to understand, hey, what are communities that are talking about me? You can go ahead and use this right now. Be able to find out, okay, you might be interested in an investing community, but there's so many different types of investing communities. Where are you being talked about that might surprise you? There's a really interesting case here with Zwift, where it's a cycling product for analytics for your workouts. Obviously, there's places that's going to come up: cycling, velo, Peloton. One of the top communities that I don't think any of us would have thought about was a PC building community. So there's this crazy overlap of people that were building PC gaming rigs that also happen to be into advanced analytics for cycling. I don't think you would have gotten that if you had just done a generic search of what's a good place to find that type of community. And then taking this a step further, we have a free tool called Reddit Pro. This is more built for brands, right? So the Reddit answer side, definitely a consumer product. Brands are using it, but Reddit Pro is really, okay, I want to understand like what communities are talking about me, what communities are not talking about me, what is the sentiment? Is there positive? Is there negative? And that can really start to help inform you of like, how can I like craft a marketing strategy around those things? And then the last slide that I have, I'll stop talking, is this kind of goes back to that trust aspect, right? We pulled up literally just this morning, what's the best app for crypto trading? You can do this right now on your phone. If you go to Google or another search engine, you're going to get a lot of ads, and ads are great, right? But being able to see like what is a real person think about a product, a solution, something that you're going to invest your time into. Usually if I'm signing up for something, I'm signing up for years and years at a time. So I'm going to spend some time doing some research. On the right, you see, this is right from Reddit Answers, same exact question. And it gives you all of these different pros and cons and conversations that are happening, allows you to dig into specific communities that you maybe didn't even know existed. And I think it's pretty interesting. Sometimes brands show up on here, sometimes they don't. And I think for marketers, it's a real interesting case. It kind of plays on what Paige was saying, that you're being talked about probably, and how you decide to use this information or not to help you grow is at your fingertips.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this idea of having these really vibrant communities is really so crucial, that have been that were grown over years and decades at this point. So I think one of the things that I was hoping you could talk about a little bit was, how do you then use this for privacy safe, but and yet usable targeting? Like, how do you take all this data and use it into, and convert it into signals that advertisers can use to pinpoint the audience, especially with the nuanced conversations that are going on?
Yeah. I'll go back to like the investing situation, right? If you were a marketer and you were going to say, hey, I want to reach an investing community, a crypto community, or maybe not community, I just want to reach this audience. I think the very traditional, antiquated answer would be, okay, I want to find investors. So I'm going to search males, 35 plus, household income of 100K. That very much is limiting so many people that are actually investing. And so if you go into something like Reddit Answers, you can say, what are some good investing communities? And you're going to get everything from parenting communities of like, hey, I'm thinking about investing for my kid, right? Like, what's a good app that I can like start to involve them? Wall Street bets. You're going to get very different types of human beings that are going to be in Wall Street bets, that are going to be in the r/investing community. You might get a community like churning, right? There's so many bits of nuance that are in that conversation that you wouldn't be able to capture if you just did some sort of traditional off-the-shelf audience that is maybe gathering information from some pretty outdated sources. So I think for us, we're not targeting based off of the user, we're targeting based off of the context, right? And so that context captures so many more things than you would get if you just did some off-the-shelf demographic and zip code based information.
Right. And then I would assume that the AI also helps you scale that, right? Because that's one of the key things that advertisers obviously want to scale in their campaigns. So how does that work?
Yeah. So on the scale side, it's kind of two things. I think if you wanted to find those communities, that Reddit Answers, that Reddit Pro sees where you're being talked about, sees where like your competitors are being talked about, sees the sentiment. It really helps you understand what is the type of messaging that I also need to be able to put out to these communities, right? I just listed off 5, 6 different communities. Every single one of them is going to probably want a message that knows that you're speaking to them, that you're not being like tone deaf in the room, right? And by going in and seeing, okay, I have some like negative sentiment about my brand here. I don't think that's true, right? So I'm going to go in and I want to find a community where I can run an AMA, and I want to answer some questions with the community and really try to change their perception, or hear some really honest feedback about what they think about my brand and change that. On the much more scalable side, somebody can see, okay, there's a lot of conversation volume in this investing community or in a stocks community, or Bitcoin right now, all-time high. Maybe I just want to like meet that moment really quick and run some ads that are on the conversation pages themselves. And by able to using something like Reddit Pro, Reddit Answers, it allows you to get there so much faster than like endlessly doing research on your own.
Right, right. And then if we go into the like the micro level, the subreddit level insights, how are you leveraging these insights to inform or even co-create creatives, like while ensuring that the end result feels native to each of these communities?
Yeah, like it's very obvious when we're talking to some marketers and they've never used Reddit before, and they're like, "Hey, we want to use this hashtag." I'm like, "Hashtags don't work on Reddit." So like that's a like really quick little insight. But I think like to your point, you know, going back to headline creation, right? Like me personally, I know I'm gonna say something probably dumb here. There's a lot of different creative optimization out there. I personally don't care if a button is green or purple or blue or red. And I know it probably makes a huge difference on some CTR or conversion rate. But what I really care about is knowing that somebody is actually paying attention to the things I care about, right? So if I'm getting a piece of creative and it's talking to me as a dad or me in San Francisco or the mental moment that I'm in when I'm in that community, like that resonates so much more to me. And so being able to understand these are the sensitive topics or about a community, or this community is a meme community and it really wants to be approached this type of way with fun creative, or they want an explainer video, right? Like there's so much different audiences that you get to interact with, and
Right.
making a way for that to be like customizable without having to have a huge marketing research team behind all of that. That's where the real power is.
Right, right. Cool. All right, so we know now, or we have perspectives on how AI is changing your product, what it does for your targeting, how you run campaigns. Now let's talk a little bit about the creative, and we already started getting into this topic. All of a sudden, again, the creative cost has plummeted. For the last Flyerside chat, we just whipped up, I think, like different creatives, like 6 different creatives in 30 minutes. And it like this it really disrupts the processes here and gives people much more immediate access to how their marketers like myself immediate access on to how they run campaigns and how they go to market with creatives. But it's always good to have a plan. So Iran is going to tell us a little bit about creative optimization and how you can use AI for that part of the picture.
So before diving deep into creative optimization, I think it'll be great to share a little bit from our perspective and working with thousands of different brands and how they are approaching AI in marketing. And it comes to these 4 main pillars. First of all, data, and understanding how data is the most important element to drive any meaningful outcome through AI. Advertisers are putting a lot of effort into making sure that their data is accessible, that it's clean, that it's granular, that it's standardized. And then layering on top of that a layer of context. What does this data mean for me as a business? How does this shift my outcomes? What do I need to layer on top of it to make these models much more aware of the things that matter to me? From there, they are approaching this with a kind of notion of accuracy. Where can I live with a lower level of accuracy given the risks or the trade-offs? And where do I need a full level of control? And finally, given everything that's happening so quickly in this space, being able to experiment much faster, understanding what's working and what's not, again, accompanying that with the need for accuracy versus risk, and taking that in consideration into what we see advertisers doing more and more is building out a hybrid approach to their AI marketing tech stack, understanding what they can leverage through third-party tools versus where they have a definite necessity into building in-house and bringing this expertise into their teams, building tools and capabilities that are fully tailored to what they need, where accuracy is paramount, risk is something non-negotiable, and they have unique data sets that might not be accessible outside of their internal organizations. And this also means that there are kind of three main challenges that marketers are facing today. Data, especially in the marketing space, is very, very fragmented. It's lacking standardization. It's very siloed across the organization. And it makes our lives as marketers very difficult when we're trying to act upon this data. Then context. Ryan talked about the context that you're getting from the Reddit streams. This is so often a neglected and overlooked element that is super important to give the AI capabilities that you're building or leveraging the relevant information to build out the kind of right outputs that you're looking for. And these two challenges leads to kind of problems with trust and accuracy and trusting the data. Think about all the times how you're working with ChatGPT and you're asking it questions and you're getting results. And you're like, this is not what I need. This is not what I'm looking for. And the reason is because you're not layering that with the right data and the right context. And there's a lot of effort that needs to be put into these processes to make the most out of these AI capabilities. But it's not all bad. There are things that are working today for advertisers. First and foremost, identifying low-hanging fruits around efficiency and automation, understanding where they can leverage this in content creation and ideation. People are talking about how AI is going to make us, dumb and stupid. I see it as a way for us to increase our ability to be more creative and explore new ideas that maybe we wouldn't have been able to think about on our own. And then you see how, especially walled gardens are leveraging their unique data sets to build out unique targeting and optimization capabilities, which is another lever for us as marketers to use and make the most out of. And finally, maybe the lowest hanging fruit for all marketers out there today is the creative, and the way that this kind of advances on a weekly basis and the capabilities that we've seen are amazing, and advertisers are able to leverage creative in a whole new way to make the most out of their creative AI strategy. So one example with creative is how this kind of is approached in kind of an autonomous AI view. We've seen advertisers look at our creative optimization tools and the fact that we create and collect creative data across the different partners, creative types, and layer on top of that an element of context is key to drive these kind of automations and understanding what new ideas can work. And we see here an example of how an advertiser took their best performing static asset, layered on top of that relevant information about, again, the type of creative, the channel that it performs best into, and using kind of a VO2 back in the day, imagine what you can do in the VO3, to create a high performing channel specific video ad from that specific static ad. So that's kind of one example of how this comes.
And just for the record, that's a white labeled case study, right? That's not what actually ran. Just the actual creative looked much better.
So that's kind of one example on the creative side of bringing that back into kind of this autonomous agentic creative workflows that introduce efficiencies, allow you to scale up these creatives much more quickly. So the last element is kind of understanding through deep dives into the data of how the different elements of creative can be examined and understood into the different elements that make up the creative. And how the different hooks and motivations and outcomes and even UGC types all behave differently, again, across the different creative types, across the different creative partners, and understanding how does a humorous skit for a hook work versus a before and after kind of workflow for a creative. Again, you can very clearly see that these are AI generated, but this gives you a way to reach this through scale, or kind of a mystery or tease type of theme to the ad, and different ways for you to leverage this data in your creative ideation and optimization workflows.
Right. So for this one, this is actually, I think that's a really interesting paradigm shift that you go from like and we talked about this earlier, is the button green or red, or like which one performs better towards like what are these themes that I'm seeing across different networks and across different types of creatives? What's the sentiment behind it? What are the emotional triggers that this is going after? And that obviously shifts how you approach creative. It makes briefings much easier to a certain degree, but it also puts much more, let's say, agency in the hands of marketers. One thing that we did recently, we ran this report about creative optimization. In 2025, it examined 1.3 million creatives across 1,300 apps and 2.4 billion in app spend. So that includes a whole lot of ideas around and insights into how marketers are actually like directing their creatives and what works where. But you looked at this, obviously. What are some of the insights that you saw from that?
I think one of the most important and sometimes overlooked element in creative is the creative scale or creative variety, and how important of that is on the impact of your creative strategy. Creatives, at the end of the day, is a creative game, and these new Gen AI capabilities gives us the opportunity to be 10x more creative and test out 10x more ideas. And these are important because this gives us more shots on goal. The creative is a scale game that we have to leverage as many creatives as we can, because I mean, Ryan said that he doesn't care if it's right, if it's blue or red or green. The honest answer is he doesn't know, but it impacts him in some certain way. I mean, we've seen how somebody found out that a ad with a picture of a cat for a keyboard app on Android was the highest performing creative. Why? Nobody knows, but you can't know if you don't test and if you don't kind of try out new ideas. And this is what this new era of creative allows you to test out. Build out more creatives, try new ideas, go crazy because the risk is low and the opportunity is high.
Absolutely. So it's not about, is it a cat or a dog? It's more about like, what are these patterns?
9 out of 10, that's going to be a cat.
That is, yes, I subscribe to that. So the other thing you talked about is this autonomous AI loop, where basically creative optimization insights are fed directly into a GPT style, like creative factory, and how that can boost your production. What does that really mean? Like, what does it look like on a day-to-day level? And is human judgment still needed?
So yes, still needed, very much so, especially when your brand requires it. Again, balancing risk and opportunity and accuracy. From the creative autonomous loop perspective, I think this comes into, again, two main elements. It's the data and it's the context. Having all of your creative data standardized in one place, accessible with the relevant context, which is the creative performance context and the creative metadata, so that all this can be leveraged into these new ideation capabilities that we talked about and how important they are as a creative scale game.
Yeah. So, and then thinking about this AI dashboard where you drill down into like a scene or like an element level performance, how are you using this, or how do you turn these micro insights into prompts for a Gen AI tool to kind of generate this next batch of concept in hours?
Yeah, so this comes back again to the different capabilities that we have to segment out and break out the different elements, if it's the elements within the ad or the end card or the hook, or the type of creative itself. And then trying to maybe kind of reverse engineer the creative itself. There are tools out there that, given an image, will output a very detailed prompt that you can then play about and ideate and work with. Now you have a text version of that image that you can work with and explore new ideas and use that back into a ChatGPT or a Firefly or whatever, and create these new ideas.
Awesome. So before we open it up to the audience, if you have any questions, as you're thinking about any questions for our panelists here, I was wondering, there's this saying, good data beats clever algorithms. Where have each of you seen data quality or the lack of it make or break an AI initiative in marketing?
Start. Yeah. So Ron was talking about the challenges that a lot of companies are facing because they have essentially their data, just their own data, right? So DoorDash knows what a user may order on DoorDash, but they don't know what a user orders on Uber Eats, nor do they know like if the user is ordering McDonald's, what they would order if they were on the McDonald's app. So a lot of data is super siloed based on the company just making decisions about their consumers based on the own data that they have, but not how those consumers interact when they're not in their own app. So to kind of go to the point about good data, to plug Sensor Tower, we do have a lot of data on every consumer and how they act in all apps, not just your own app, right? So if you're a company looking to understand basically how consumers behave across the board, we consolidate that and then give it to you so you can understand that behavior. So definitely big fan of good data there.
Yeah, I mean, they're so interdependent, right? Like the having good data, having a good algorithm, you can't have a good algorithm without feeding in that signal to it. I think more of the issue that we've seen is that it's such a new toy for folks, for marketers to be able to use, is that it can sometimes lead to just chasing a really short-term win, right? If you have a business that's based out of, hey, we know when we get a user on, lifetime value, we've hooked them, they're coming back for 2, 3, 4 years. But if you're feeding data into that algorithm or into that AI prompt or the decision that you're sending it, hey, just get me cheap CPIs. Well, like you're missing the entire point that's going to make your business successful, right? So, yeah, absolutely, good data, good algorithm. They need to be intertwined, but it's also like the human being behind the screen, making sure that they're putting a decision in there that's not just something short term.
I think a recent example I saw that I really like that comes together with data, but also it was kind of a risk appetite. And eToro, which is an investment platform, about a year ago put out a branding video campaign that was entirely generated from AI, and it was meh. And a couple of weeks ago, they released their new version of it, which is amazing. And you have a goat on man's back doing yoga in the Himalayas. And imagine how much risk they are willing to take and put their brand out there with AI on a branding video campaign. I think that's a very unique way of approaching the data they have from the creative assets and what's working and what's not, and resonates with their audience, and putting that kind of the money where their mouth is in a very strong branding campaign.
Cool. Now imagine it's July 2026. How, from your perspective, will growth marketing have changed by then? What's a prediction that you can make that you're willing to bet on right here live?
I could chime in. I think there's a lot of, and there's truth to this for sure, but I think there's a lot of conversation about AI is coming for our jobs, right? And that there's going to be such a consolidation of creative, of marketing, of you name it, right? It's like the headline every day. I think the opposite's true, right? I think from what Paige was sharing, like there's so many more verticals that are now using AI as a part of their creative strategy or using it in their marketing language. There's apps that didn't exist months ago, days ago, weeks ago, years ago that are now getting to the top of the charts, right? So I think this is actually going to be an explosion for our industry in terms of new roles getting created. Maybe it's an AI optimization specialist, right? Or being able to do so much more with creative that, as you said, there might be a brand that has some different sensitivities on like what they can share in their thing. I remember working with a brand a long time ago, and they wanted to run their Christmas creative in August. And it was because it was the best performing creative. And they were like, I don't care, it's going to get me the results. Whereas, you think about maybe like a Fortune 100 brand is not going to be able to take that same sort of risk. So again, I think it's like it's allowing you to do so much more of these scalable things. So I think it's going to actually open up new roles that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. This idea of like, okay, you want the brand to be more personalized, but how much do you allow the user to like adapt that to their need. Like where do you draw the line there, and how do you set even rules for a system like that you don't fully understand? And so it's going to be very interesting.
I think my prediction is around the number of tools that we see out there, especially that are more maybe enterprise focused. Today, data is the number one moat any company has when it comes to building out a solid AI-based product. If you don't have a unique data set, your product from an enterprise perspective is going to be very much limited in its capabilities.
Yeah, and probably also who knows what the form factor is going to be of what these tools are going to look like, because if it's 2026 and I still have to yell at the GPT because that increases the likelihood of doing exactly what I want and hallucinate less, it's well, we shall see. Paige, what about you?
Yeah, so agreed with what these guys have said. I also think that my prediction is that we'll definitely need to monitor it and use our brains to not let it kind of take us over, right? So, for example, we had a job opening, and we had there was 5 applicants that answered a question. The question was like, why do you want to work at Sensor Tower? And the answers for all 5 were the exact same. Like they clearly plugged the prompt into Sensor Tower or into ChatGPT. ChatGPT went to our website, they found some stuff on us, and then they threw it in. And it was verbatim the same one, right? So, and then imagine if we used an AI instead of Ian looking at these applications. Imagine we had an AI that went through and looked at these applications to pick the best candidate. And the AI loves it, right? Because AI wrote it. And so just 2 AI agents speaking to each other and then favoring candidates that used AI as opposed to, real people that actually wrote a thoughtful answer why they should be part of our team. So I say that because it's definitely something that I do think we need to be careful with. But to everyone else's point, we live now, or we're on the city that first came out with self-driving cars, right? Like Waymo exists, and there's so many advances that are coming out because of AI. All of us probably wouldn't have had jobs 10 years ago if it wasn't for the evolution of tech that we're all in. So there's definitely good things to come from it, but I definitely think prediction is that we just will need to kind of keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't, take us over.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Anything that you would love to see? All right, cool. Don't take it personal. I'll take your microphone.
Thank you. My question is primarily to Ryan, but I'm happy if anyone pitches in. We know content moderation teams unfortunately fell victims to the layoffs. And I hope we all were terrified by the grok Nazi flavored. So I'm sorry for the controversial question, but how do you moderate the content given the risks of AI? Thank you.
Real people. I think back to Paige's answer, right? That it's not Skynet running all of our subreddit moderation. It's real human beings, right? So I think like part of what has made this platform exist and thrive for 20 years is a lot of it's that it hasn't changed much in 20 years, right? It's people that are hyper passionate about a topic. And that could be a meme community, it could be an investing community, it could be a parent community, it could be cars, whatever floats your boat. I think where Reddit specifically is leveraging AI for our moderators is to make their lives easier, right? It's one thing being able to moderate a community that is a couple dozen people, right? But like personal finance is over 20 million different users, right? And that's a huge team of moderators that are there. And the internet doesn't shut down, right? It's, so if you live on the West Coast and you have a whole bunch of content that's coming in at a completely different time zone, being able to leverage AI tools to make decisions off of the rules you wrote, that's where we're really seeing it be protecting the community.
Great. We had one question over here.
Hey, this is kind of a question to everyone. How are you guys seeing apps navigate the transformation from SEO-based descriptions to AEO, answer engine optimization descriptions? Like how are products kind of navigating the shift? and feel free to plug your products in the process if you have to. Yeah.
So one element of it is first your App Store listing. Make sure that it services the relevant information that the LLMs can capture. Then wherever your app is talked about, make sure that the relevant information that is important for your app is out there. And then make sure that you are the links that refer back to your app are deep links, and they can surface the users back into the relevant kind of context of the discussion that they're exploring within these answer engines, to make sure that, again, if your app is content based, then it deep links the user back into the right place within the app. So that's kind of maybe 3 ways to approach this from a top down perspective.
Maybe a little bit of a different answer. So Reddit last year was the 6th most popular search term on Reddit. And what we've seen is a big shift in marketers coming to us and saying, I know that these LLMs are getting trained off of Reddit data, right? Like we have an API, we license that out, and it's based off of this conversation data that's happening. And so while there's definitely folks that are, changing their strategies for SEO, for SEM, for all these things, a lot of folks now are starting to realize, like, well, I really want to get to the source of how it's even making these recommendations when I go to ChatGPT, right? Or when I go to, your LLM of choice. And so more of the conversations that we've been having have been marketers coming to us and saying, like, hey, I know folks are going to be talking about me here, or they're not talking about me. How can I start to be in those communities and get ahead of this problem, so that if somebody goes to ChatGPT and types in what's the best crypto app, that I actually show up there and I show up in a positive way?
All right, let's close it out with a quick lightning round. 3 questions, 1-word answers, 2-word answers, something like that. Number 1, choose one: 10x more data or 10x faster experimentation?
Experimentation, for sure.
Faster, for sure.
Data.
All right. 1 word you'd ban from every conference or webinar or live stream event on AI and marketing.
ROI.
Transformational.
Disrupt.
Oh boy, we're playing bingo here. Okay, last one. If your AI assistant could do only one thing in 2026, ideate, produce, or optimize. Ideate, produce, or optimize. Which would you choose?
I'll go for optimize, but specifically my weekly grocery run. That's important.
I guess this falls into produce, but I was having this conversation yesterday with my boss. I had like an endless amount of Slacks coming in, and I just wish it could look at all the answers I've ever given and just answer for me. So produce.
Optimize.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us virtually and in person here. Thank you for being here, Paige, Ryan, Iran. And this recording will be shared with you. And if you want to connect, stick around. We'll also share the speaker's information. If you have any follow-up questions, and everybody who's here in person, please do join us for lunch. Thank you all.